I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. So I don't know about you guys, but I love the ritual of going to vote on election day. Here in Oklahoma City, I can actually walk to my polling place, which is really fun. And I'm so looking forward to doing that with my son for the first time. It will be his first time going to a polling place on an election day. And I've shared this on social media before, but in my family, it was tradition that on election day, if you wanted to go knock doors and participate in a campaign, you could skip school. And my dad would go take us to get a Starbucks and a snack, and we would go knock doors on a beautiful fall day. So this is in my blood, and I'm so looking forward to participating in the midterm election. So the countdown of a matter of hours has begun. Hold on to your hats, you guys. So in terms of today's episode, we have a couple mini stories here at the top, and then we'll launch into some bigger news stories for the rest of the episode. So let's dive in. First up, we have Paul Pelosi. He has been released from the hospital after surgery and 6 days of treatment. He spent most of his time at the hospital in the intensive care unit. He will continue to recover at home under doctor's care following his arm and skull injuries. And secondly, it seems like Donald Trump is gearing up for a 2024 presidential run. He was at a rally in Iowa where he told the crowd, quote, "Get ready," end quote. People close to the former president are suggesting that the bid might come as soon as the second week of November, according to the New York Times. Stay tuned. And for our first longer story today, we are discussing Aaron Carter passing away. So the 90s pop sensation Aaron Carter was found dead on Saturday morning at his Los Angeles home. No foul play is suspected, but the cause of his death has also not been released. He was only 34 years old. Aaron Carter was the younger brother of Nick Carter, a member of the incredibly famous boy band, the Backstreet Boys. Both were considered 90s heartthrobs. Aaron released his first album at the tender age of 9 and was skyrocketed into stardom thereafter. His most popular songs included Crush on You, Aaron's Party, which sold 3 million copies, and more recently, Sooner or Later. He also made appearances alongside Hilary Duff in her iconic Disney show, Lizzie McGuire. Aaron also starred on Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Seventh Heaven, which if you're a little bit younger or a lot older, you may not remember these shows, but in my heyday, these were, every teenage girl's shows. We all watched all of these things. He also opened for Britney Spears in concert. He featured basketball star Shaquille O'Neal in one of his music videos that claimed Aaron had once beat Shaq at a game of horse. Aaron even appeared on Dancing with the Stars, but later in life, you see, things took a turn, as they so often do for child stars. He began to have mental health and addiction struggles, and as we all know, those two can very easily go hand in hand. In 2019, Nick and Angel Carter both took out restraining orders against Aaron because Aaron had reportedly confessed to having violent impulses towards them and really their whole family. Aaron sought treatment in a mental health facility at one point, And he was actually pulled over for driving erratically 4 days before his death. He passed a field sobriety test, though, so he was allowed to leave from that incident, again, just 4 days before his death. So it's unclear why his driving seemed off to the police officer. He was also interviewed for a YouTube episode that went live on November 2nd, where he did not seem to be doing very well. He was also in a battle to regain some custody of his son. Aaron's son was reportedly removed from his care due to concerns over his mental health and drug usage. So it's pretty heartbreaking of a story all the way around, but a common one nonetheless when it comes to child celebrities. Our hearts go out to everyone affected, and he will always live on in my heart, at least, as the little boy singing and dancing. Rest in peace, Aaron. And next up, Arizona poll workers receiving death threats. So in one of Arizona's tightest counties, the 2020 election still haunts. Poll workers there have received over 140 documented threats of violence. One threatened, quote, wire around their limbs and tied and dragged by a car, end quote. And another one said, quote, you will be executed, end quote. This uptick in hostility towards election workers comes directly from the conspiracies about election rigging perpetrated by President Trump and his team. Claims like fake ballots, non-U.S. citizens voting, rigged machines, and corrupt officials have swirled out of Trump's mouth directly and manifested in a series of lawsuits, all of which were thrown out by judges, even a number of judges placed by Trump himself. And with what happened to Nancy Pelosi's husband just last week, and on January 6th to those who lost their lives defending our leadership, these threats hold more weight day by day. Maricopa County has put shatterproof film on their windows, purchased more first aid kits for polling stations, and strengthened all of the doors. Poll workers are scared, and they have a right to be. They report that their mental health is suffering as a result of the constant harassment and death threats. That said, they are an essential part of our democracy, you guys, and their position deserves the utmost respect. It's noble what they're doing in spite of all of this harassment, because as we know, these types of threats are up all over the country, not just in Arizona. They're just particularly bad in Maricopa County. So if you go to vote this election, make sure to say a big, warm thank you to the men and women helping to protect our country's elections and therefore our system of government. And lastly, for today, we have a number of big changes at Twitter to go over. Let's dive in. So first up, we're going to discuss the layoffs. So all across the internet, you can see the tech world absolutely reeling from what happened in the few short days since Elon Musk took power at Twitter. He pretty immediately cut the staff of 7,500 people in half. Those being laid off found themselves cut off from their company email addresses Thursday evening. It's even reported that one was just dropped from a call that was underway. But it wasn't like there was one big wave of layoffs, you guys. No, the process was described as haphazard by the New York Times. Some employees literally finding out that they had been laid off in the middle of the night. Cuts happened across many departments, and so far, at least 5 former employees have filed a class action lawsuit together. You see, by California state law, companies are required to let workers know that layoffs are coming, and that did not happen here. Some employees even tried to volunteer being laid off in place of their colleagues in more dire situations, such as being pregnant or here on a work visa. They are supposed to be getting 2 to 3 months of severance, but were instructed to not publicly discuss the layoffs, which let's just say many of them have on Twitter, ironically. And then next up, I also want to discuss Twitter's pause in ad spending. So many large companies, such as Volkswagen, have currently put a pause on their Twitter advertising spend as they do not approve of the direction that the company is headed in, and they don't want to be associated with it. And I doubt that these layoffs are going to help with that. Advertising accounts for 90% of Twitter's revenue, so they simply cannot afford to scare off these big clients long term. And next up in Twitter changes, paying for a blue check mark. Twitter has reportedly begun a new program where you can pay $7.99 a month, to be exact, to have a blue check mark next to your name. And that is $7.99 as in $7.99. So one has to ask at that point, what is the point of having one? If anyone can have one, don't they kind of lose their meaning and appeal? They're supposed to help signify that you are someone of public importance, that someone that other people might try to impersonate. So if everyone can have a blue check mark, like for their scammy fake accounts or a bot account, then what do they even mean at that point? So lastly, in Twitter news, getting rid of ERGs. So Twitter had a number of ERGs, or employee resource groups, that Musk is just gutting. 2 examples are Twitter Women and Blackbirds, 2 groups that help support women and Black employees respectively with the workplace issues that we all know to be pervasive. Blackbird specifically was used as a model for other companies designing such programs. These changes, coupled with the supposed free speech, quote unquote, huge air quotes there, that Elon suggests he wants for the platform, worries so many that we may be moving backwards in terms of treatment of women and minorities. We are certainly seeing maltreatment of Twitter's own employees, and that is never a good sign. A fish rots from the head, as they say, and that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Forgive your enemy, but remember the bastard's name." If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfree media today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezek Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from Oklahoma.